Hey, Kevin Inoue here from Fight Designer LLC. Coming back to a topic I haven't touched on in a while because somebody maybe wants to buy some of these because, well, and I may be willing to sell them because I haven't talked about them or used them in a while. Let's talk about model guns. So back in, probably the heyday was in the 80s, like around the time of the A-Team and shows like that. There were these props that were in fairly decently heavy rotation in Hollywood back then. When you didn't want to use full load, like real guns with blanks and whatnot, you had the option of using these cap firing model guns that came out of Asia. And they were available in a bunch of different kinds of models, some of which, you know, would be tricky to get in real firearms because, you know, they're full auto, for example, or short-barreled rifles or sawed-off shotguns. It would be illegal without a tax stamp, and that makes all sorts of other legal complications. There were reasons why you might want to go with the prop option, but they didn't have CG muzzle flash and stuff like that back then. They didn't have as many options as we do now. So one of the things that they would turn to is these cap firing model guns. Companies like MGC and KSC and Hudson and Tanaka. At this point, most of these things are basically collector's items. They're kind of antiques. They're starting to get a little bit fragile. They were often more plastic than metal, and when they were metal, they were like the cheap cast pop metal kind of stuff. But they were kind of cool in that they basically replicated the functions of a real firearm, in that they would use these reusable brass casings, and I've talked about these a couple times on my channel with some examples, and these things would screw apart, and so you'd have basically a little firing pin kind of piston, and a place where you'd put a cap and a little vent hole in the end of that cap. And so you would put a 5mm or 7mm, depending on the model, cap inside there. And for now, I'm just going to use one of these cheap ring caps because these are pretty darn close to a 5mm cap. And so just to demo what the process would be without it probably being able to cycle correctly, that's good enough. So you basically had a round with a you know, minor explosion thing that would go boom, and that force was enough to cycle it. And so you would actually have a little bit of spark or flash, a little bit of smoke, because it's, you know, dirty, smoky kind of stuff. You have magazines that look like real magazines and load what look like real rounds. Now, sometimes they looked like rounds with the bullets still in, and some of them looked like spent casing, so that when they spat out, they'd look right. This is for the Mac 10 that I'll show in a minute. But of course, the fact that these had different parts that had to move together means that they're a pain in the butt. So often you have to really like put a ton of silicone oil in these to make them work, and sometimes double cap them, things like that. They're reusable, but that also means that as they start to get used more, they start to get dings and get worn, and the lip gets a little chewed up, or you lose a piece. Some of them had O-rings, which had to get replaced periodically. Some of them didn't. But functionally, they work the same as real firearms. Basically, you have the ability to chamber around, right? You have a hammer or a striker or whatever, depending on the firearm, bolt, essentially a firing pin. You'd have often working safeties, and you know, it can chamber around, and if it fired right, it could eject around. This is probably not going to cycle correctly because, again, this is just a little cheap ring cap in there right now. Yeah, that's not going to work. So I can do losing around because my garage is a mess. When it pulls back, yep, you got a functional ejector in there. So these were pretty cool. And they often had full trademarks, although sometimes when they were imported, there were issues with that. So this one has the Pietro Beretta and the Beretta trademarks and all. Some of them it would get kind of just ground out or you know, removed when it was imported. You know, even on the magazine here, yeah, Cal 9mm para manufacturing, machine. So mix of trademarks between the manufacturer and the company it is pretending to be. Get the cap out of there. So yeah, I guess in this case the cap was not quite the right size. Who knows? Some of them are a little bit more complicated than others in terms of the loading process as well. So when I've used these on set, And I tried them a few times. I used them on Bullet Spud and Fistful of Cash. I tried using some on Clutch, a couple other films. That's another issue. Again, these are basically collector's items, and so if you lose these rounds, they can also be really hard to replace. So this is what the caps look like when you actually get them, if you get any. And for a while, they were not importing these at all into the US, which obviously was an issue and makes these less useful. They're also not idiot-proof. So the more levels of function something has, the more ways it can go wrong. So every little bit of functionality, whether it's being able to chamber around, eject around, relying on the power of the load to cycle it, every little step in that process brings with it the potential for error. And so you do have frequently jams and things like that with these. So it's also, especially with full auto, you know, the chances that one of them somewhere in that magazine is going to jam are pretty good. It's rare that you would get through a full mag without a jam. Let's see if this works with an actual cap. Nope. I suspect that shell. Let me check the others here. Am I missing a part? So that one has an O-ring in the base. Does this have the O-ring in the base? It does, but it sticks. So I suspect maybe it's just stiff because it needs like some silicone oil or some sanding. And this is all, you know, again, these are old, they're brass, there's a little bit of corrosion going on here. So I'm not at all surprised that I'm getting misfires. Even just trying to get a single shot out of one of these. Let's try one last time here. Hey, there we go. So that one fired. I don't know if you can see the little bit of smoke. And it actually did eject the casing and slide lock. So yes, on set, then you would have to figure out where the heck this stupid little round went. Take this out. The cap got pushed all the way to the end, so there's still a little bit of plastic up there that you gotta try and get out. I usually have a little bit of wire to poke it through with. I don't have that on me right now. Yeah. So that's how these work. And when they work, they're pretty darn cool. You can show them in close-up because, like I said, they got trademarks, they got smoke, you got shells kicking out. In this case, if you saw it up close as the shell ejected, it wouldn't look quite right because it's got the bullet at the end, which in a real one, by the time it was ejected, it wouldn't. I've got two of these Beretta 92s. One of them in silver here, the other in black, and these had, one of them was originally a part of a kit that was like based on an anime, and so I think I still have somewhere the like stuff that goes on it. It had some accessories that made it look a little more sci-fi. Yeah, I have some of the parts here, but I took those off because I was using it to try and make it look a little more standard, although this has the like Lara Croft style compensator on it. That could come off. And put some pack line grips on this also to make it a little more comfortable and realistic and all. But yeah, so I've got a few of those, a couple of the Beretta 92s. I've got Desert Eagles in both black and silver. Now, because these are chunkier rounds, this is a Desert Eagle. This is the 44 mag, not the 50, but still pretty darn big. Because they're larger rounds, these would use the 7mm caps. Here we go, yep. And so these were used for the Desert Eagles. They were also used in the AR-15 that I've got. Had a XM177N, which I sold, and an AR-15, which I still have. I'll do select fire, journal the AR-15 from that. So anyway, you know, compared to like my blank firing Desert Eagle I've got that uses 8mm blanks, this actually is a lot closer to what it should look like than a little 8mm blank with a bit of plastic wad in the front would. So, you know, some cool options that were always just kind of waiting around for the right project. But frankly, most of these I've never used because they've just been waiting around for the right project, because you got to be able to have the... they're not idiot-proof. I can't just rent them out. You got to have someone on set who knows what they're doing and can troubleshoot them. And even when you do, that's no guarantee it'll work. I think the last time I talked about one of these, it was the Beretta 93R. So I tried using one of these on a short that I did while I was in Ohio. and it just did not work on set. Like I got maybe 1 or 2 shots off. I would have been better off just with a gas blowback and editing it. And again, this is really cool when it works. You know, you can do 3-round bursts and it ejects the casings, and it looks pretty nice. But when it doesn't work, there's no point. It might as well be a solid rubber dummy. And then you get into full auto props, like the Mac 11 here. And I've got one that is in decent shape. A little styrofoam here is broken. And one that is that I got that was broken. And these were kind of fun because it gave you an option to do full auto. These were great for things like Bulk, Blood, and Fistful of Cash, where we had a bunch of different street gangs. And they come with the dummy suppressor that can also screw on. You can have a sling and things like that if you want. All sorts of options. If you want better flash, leave the suppressor off. The closer the vent is to where the thing detonates, the more you're going to be able to see. And yes, folding stock as well. And this part can click in, so if you want to have a shoulder stock of sorts, you can. Not the most comfortable one, but you know, it's not really what it's made for. So open bolt Mac 11 with decent capacity here. And one of the interesting things about this one, this is the MGC, is, yeah, this one comes with rounds that are made to look like they have been fired. So there is no bullet in the ends of these. It is just like a spent casing that would eject out. And this one looks like it actually has a cap in it. Let's put one behind it. It looks like it does not. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if it can actually eject one and chamber the next. And these are kind of tricky in that they have a little piece inside that has this sort of firing pin action and moves forward, but it's a separate piece, and so that's a super easy piece to lose. So that's the other thing, is when you're reassembling these casings, you got to be really careful not to lose all the little pieces. I've got an extra shell here that does not have that, and so this one is not useful as is, except as a spare, you know, until I find another one of those little, there we go, there's a piece. Actually, I might have that right there. It's right there in the box, unless that's for a different one. I don't know. So let's see. This also has, yeah, semi-full selector switch. All right, so this fires from an open bolt. Yeah, so you can see the round in there now. Let's see if this will fire and if I can not lose it. Oh, didn't fire. All right, again, not surprised that round has probably been loaded for like 15 or 20 years since Bolt's Blood and Fistful of Cash or something like that, or Agent 5. Yeah, there was a short I worked on for a while that used one of these. Got off almost a magazine at that one on a green screen. Yeah, I'm trying not to send them flying just because I don't want to lose them. But yes, there is a little ejector in there that catches them. So in this case, this one is plastic, not metal. You can see the rounds are kind of tarnished. A little polishing and sanding wouldn't hurt those. Those are pretty, not in great shape. But let's see. Yeah, so you don't actually chamber around with this one because it fires from that open bolt. So you'd actually fire from this position with the chamber open. There we go. Hey, we've got one off. You can see the smoke. Sorry, I had it too low, so you didn't actually get to see. But it did fire around and eject this casing and load the next one. Which is here and stuck a little bit. Ooh, yeah, it's a distinct smell. If you ever played with cap guns as a kid, you'll recognize that smell because it's really just the same smell as a cap. I don't know if you can see the smoke coming out of there now. There's still a little bit of smoke wafting up. Not much, a little bit. So there's a little detonator pin in the front, so it actually pushes the primer bit thing forward, and then the whole round comes into in this one, and it pushes on that thing in the front, and that's what pushes the cap into the firing pin thing and makes it detonate. 2 mags for this? Yeah, 2 magazines. This one is basically full. But I've got some odds and ends that are missing their firing pins, as it were. Yeah, and I've got an AR-15 as well. Oh, hey, some more rounds in here. There we go. Yeah, here's some nice rounds. So those actually still have the cap in them. Yeah, so these are ones that I actually like polished up, so where they'd be a little bit more smooth and ready to go. Let's see if we can get a 3-round burst off. Hopefully not lose these. Load them up, see what it looks like. Again, starting from that just back. Catch it into here. Let's try that. All right, it's on full auto, so let's see if it goes. There we go. That worked actually pretty well. So yeah, the trick to this is just you gotta keep these shells in good shape. You gotta polish them up and oil them, and keep your caps dry, all that stuff. Because it's a picky prop, and on most sets these days, they don't want you to take the time to do that. They don't want to give you time to hunt down all the shell casings that went flying and sit there and reload them, because again, these are antiques. I don't have a whole ton of them, so it's not like I can just have a couple hundred ready to go the way I could with blanks. I'm going to be sitting there on set trying to hot one each one down, poke the thing out, clean it off, clean off the inside with a Q-tip and some oil, and then reload it, push it in just right. Occasionally, if you push too hard, they set off in your hand, which is a little surprising, but not really dangerous because it's just a little cap. It's a to-do. And when people are getting crazy and yelling at you under pressure, it can be no fun at all. So again, it's one of those things where I'm torn because it's such a cool prop when it works. I had an Uzi at one point that I sold that used these. I had a shotgun that I ordered, but it was broken when it arrived from the UK. This was before the VCR Act, when the UK was a decent source of these, and how the UK is generally not. So yeah, it's getting harder and harder to source, both them and the parts. This one also still has the little, this was sometimes sold with a little strap here that could also work as sort of a front grip, as it were, if you wanted to try and keep the muzzle from rising as much, or you can just do that. But yeah, because with full auto, muzzle flip would be a bit of an issue. So, this still has the original box and accessories. Like I said, I think I've got a broken one down there somewhere or this is broken off and I need to try and fix that. Yeah, I don't know. If I think it's the point where I need to find them a good home, because I never get to use them on set, and that's just sad, and I can't really afford to just be a collector. What I need really is props that I can use on set. And I think now that we have CG that can do the gun effects pretty well, I just don't have the excuse to keep these anymore. So I think maybe it's time to pass them on. But I wanted to share first, and nobody wants to buy them without seeing first if they can actually, at least to some degree, work. And so that's also part of what this video was about. If you're interested in these model guns, there is a collector's community. NP40 Model Guns is a website that has a forum that's kind of the most active remaining space that I'm aware of, where people talk about these and trade them, sell them, find sources of parts, things like that. There are still some that have come out of Asia, just, other countries where you can't get real guns. And so for them, this is as close as they're ever going to get. And they like to collect those. If you're interested, give me a holler, because I would love to find these a good home. I kind of like them, but I just can't use them, so that makes me sad. So if you are interested in adopting any of these and giving them a good home, let me know. Until next time, Kevin Inoue, Fight Designer LLC. I'm going to be out of town for a little bit. I've got a workshop coming up this weekend in Tri-Cities, Washington, the Raid on the River. I've got some family vacation planned, and I've got a workshop in August up in Seattle, the Seattle Sockeye that I'm looking forward to, and some minor movie and play projects as well in the works, as well as just, life and being a dad. So we'll see what I get around to, but until next time, stay safe, stay sane, stay healthy, and I'll talk to you next time.